I'd like to talk about is being deliberate about culture. Now, this is one of the things that remote companies had to do very well from very early on, because they don't have the luxuries that come with an office. They had to be deliberate about their culture, and they had to work on it almost from day one, because an office gave us this false sense of security, and it kept a relative structure and it kept a relevant control over our team that we don't have anymore. A strong culture is about defining and strengthening the glue that binds your team together. If you haven't defined your vision, mission, and values yet, I recommend you do, because these are the DNA of your organization, and they are the DNA of the organization moving forward. It's what's unique to your culture, and it's unique to the glue. If you have defined your values, mission, vision, I recommend you start to embed them and work on really driving them forward. The values and the mission and the vision are not front of mind for everybody all the time. And we forget about what the vision is. We forget about what the values are unless we are reminded of them. So as leaders, it is your job to do this. This will in turn help to drive team morale, employee engagement, motivation, commitment, loyalty, productivity, which in turn will help to deal with the mental health issues and burnout issues that are, I believe, are not far in terms of these happening to us. So I surveyed 25 tech companies 2 weeks ago about this issue, and 82% of them said that burnout and mental health were areas that they're starting to see more more issues around. Buffer just went on a 4-day work week, for example, to overcome the anxiety and issues that they are experiencing or they believe they're going to start experiencing. So if we take a minute to think about the culture challenges, I'd like you to think about what your culture was like in December 29. Think now about what you had and what you took for granted in December 29. You had proximity, physical interaction, and body language. You had immediate and reliable communication with your team. In informal communication, information dissemination seemed to happen easier. Creativity and brainstorming was easier to do. Informal and formal feedback happened much easier. The giving and the receiving of recognition, rewards happened better, and visibility and availability of people. We had control of the environment. There was more structure to the environment. The banter, camaraderie, and social events happened easier, and culture happened by default. So this is December 2019. Now, let's think about how that has changed over March, September this year. What's changed and what's changing? Essentially, the way we do things around here, our culture is changing. The way we operate our business. So it's behaviors, habits, norms, beliefs, assumptions, principles, processes and policies, communication styles. These are not alone. These and many more of the way we work have changed and are continuing to change and will continue to change. In April 2021, where will your culture be? How will your culture change again? So if we think about this, how must we adapt? Focus on communication. Process size the business. All these 9 best practices. How is a business going to take this on board? What are you going to do depending on whether you go remote or hybrid? So it's a busy slide, but it's an interesting slide to give you that perspective. And I remind you, and it makes me think about this particular slide, how just on the communication side, what's going to change? How is the culture going to change? So a successful hybrid work environments require developing a remote first culture. What this means is that whether you are going to build a remote, fully remote organization or a hybrid organization, you have to develop a remote first culture, because some of your team, maybe even a large proportion of your team, are going to be working remote at some time. You cannot continue to work the way you are. If you stay in a synchronous manner, fully synchronous, it's going to burn people out. So questions you can ask are, how do we create a fulfilling, inclusive, and equitable experience for our colleagues? How do we create a scenario where there are no advantages or disadvantages in working remotely? And the answer to those are, treat remote working as the default way of working. Go remote first. Build remote first best practices into the DNA of the company. Remote employees must be and feel as much part of the team as the people in the office. And everybody should experience the culture in mostly, it's not always possible to get exactly the same way, but everybody must experience the culture in mostly the same way, so that there are no second-class citizens. The other point is that leadership should work mostly remote. If leadership work in an office, then people start to congregate towards the office. So those are the 9 best practices. This is my recommendation, having studied these companies, on how to approach the transition that we are going through, whether we like it or not. We don't know how long this is going to go on for. We don't know, it's definitely another 6 months, but if it's anything like the 1918 flu, there will be another bump in a year's time. And so this is an opportunity actually to take on some remote best practices that will be good for your business if you eventually do go back to fully operationally in an office space. But my belief is that that's a long way off, if it ever.